morning, class. Welcome to Homeroom with Unk and Market Monk. Morning, P. How's your week?
Really solid. I kind of went in with some ideas on, I wanted a short setup because I feel like we're kind of getting there. Um, but I don't really short strength. So I was on solar quite a bit in that regard and did really well there. And then, caught Dell, kind of surprising. Just spotted 120 calls on Dell for mid March, and just really stood out. And the kind of move that made just kind of validated a lot of what we've been seeing for a couple months about technology and the hardware side, sort of over the software side, and then the way you saw Snow pull back, what we saw with PanW. So it's good to see a broad thesis like that take shape and then provide setups you can actually trade as well. And so that's what's been going on. And I think we're still very much in the midst of that. SMCI's joining the S&P, and you know a lot of the semiconductor laggers are still, I think, gonna make a move. So yeah, just staying on that, not looking to make any big kind of calls on a top or anything like that. I think you just kind of you go with the trend, but you got to find the particulars of the trend if you're really gonna do well trading it.
Yeah, I definitely didn't have a bunch. I'm kind of gonna work backwards because I did use the later part of the week to kind of clean up some stuff in DCA and some stuff that I do believe we're gonna pop Q2. Just stuff I like to be in general from a swing standpoint. That you're just better off taking time to get in. Monday I did trade and got Soundhound, and um, it's a good example why I saved it for the end here. It's a good example of not getting even the full move on the day, or maybe even half the move on the day. But I hit my goal with it. I'll tell you that, and for the day, and
Yeah, yeah,
that's what really we're about, is just kind of like getting on base. I don't think it's put any other way. And just with my situation currently, I was trying to get back on the horse, but once I seen goal, it's like let's just call it a day and work to tomorrow, and then things went from there. But I preach that a lot, and that was just a good example of me applying it to myself. Just take your goal when you see it and get off the horse and hop back in. Don't worry about where it's going, what could be the top. Like, don't try to call the
yeah.
top on it. Just if you see a number that fits your system in that regard, and that's why it's important to have numbers up front. Like you're just better off, and you do a great job at that. I think through the our time together, because you get 8 or 9 minutes into the day, and you're humble about it, and just like, oh, that's what I needed today, and know you could probably do a lot more, but again, you stick to that system, and you're gonna be you're
Yeah,
gonna keep
yeah,
the
it was
longevity.
the things are hitting targets faster than I expect. And so like Palo Alto was on that last week, and then all of a sudden, Nancy Pelosi, her buys on it came out while we're already in it, and then it was I think 28 minutes in to the first day, I'm at my goal. So yeah, and I think too, the thing about that, I mean, one reason that I try to take that approach is, you know bad things can happen when you jump back in, and if it's psychologically, if you just hit a number you were after, it's best to just walk away. Now, if your goals are too small for what you're trading and what you're capable of, I think you can adjust that. But yeah, I don't like running right through a goal and then thinking I should just keep hopping back in for more. The way I stay engaged in the market is I start hitting the books, and it just gives me more time to do that if if the trading's done. So that, yeah, that works for me. Works for me psychologically for sure.
Yeah, it's little things like that that I think a lot of the Twitter sphere, or just people in general that fail at this, that's what they run into. They literally have great trades, and then now that's the expectation. I've hit my golf
Yeah.
driver. I've hit the driver 308 yards before, You know, it happens. But I'm a
Yeah.
240 guy. I'm a 240 guy, and if I'm trying to hit 300, I'm going to waste every single golf round I have except for that one time. If I go 220, 240, I'm going to have 18 good holes, and that's just better for you overall.
Yeah.
And it just applies to pretty much anything you do in this. I think where you've changed me is I don't just walk away. I do start hitting the books, and to find the
Yeah.
next one, to
Yeah.
find the next one, or to find um, something that we were already on in our package that will be next. So, um, and
Yeah.
we cover a lot. So, I think that's important to also stay inside that pool. You do see that a little bit. People scribbling outside the lines. I mean, we read the not read the room. The voice chat session, we usually come out with like 40, 30, 40, 50 stocks. That's a lot of stocks. I mean, you should be able to find something that fits your style in there.
Yeah, and I think too I mean a question we talk about good questions and not as good questions. And the asking us about a stock out of the blue, um, especially one that we have talked about before, I can almost guarantee you, like I have looked at it, but I'm not interested. And so like it's been like that with some of the EV chargers, some of EV stocks in general. It's like just not now, not for me. And then they'll pop back up. Like I posted Fastly um, in last week, just because the kind of the flow look came back, but I really was not interested in that during that big earnings drop and then the follow through on that drop. And I said, I'm like, well, it has to show me something. But I promise you, I'm looking at it. I didn't forget about it. I cover. I mean, nobody's looking at more stocks than we are. So the I don't mind that question, but I think just to understand the absence of commentary on it is actually saying something about that stock typically.
Yeah, no, I think in a great example this week, if you want to name some names for you, we've been talking outside of Tesla, like the EV, alt energy, solar, batteries, whatever, chargers, they're just crap. And when Plug hit collabs, look at the chart since. And it's
Yeah,
it's it's seeing through the hurricane or the storm that I think we excel at because we will find the one winner. But that doesn't mean you run to the one you like. I said it last week. We're not winners right now. It's winner. It's singular for a lot of these
yeah.
sectors. There's just one that's doing really good, especially if
Well,
it's a 5 out of the 10 on the street or less name.
so look at SAS year to date, and how many of those have now given back that the move since January? Snow did, PanW did, which it's doing well since, and that's kind of how they're going. But what was the one that stood out? What was the one that just took off that we kind of knew was going to take off? It was Okta,
Yeah.
and that is a sector that is struggling right now, and it's probably going to. ZS was down Friday. I don't expect crowd to be good. D-Dog dropped and kind of stabilized, but the point is that dramatic upside from where we are, very hard to achieve, just because they almost have to guide down, and or they're going to say something that the market's going to use as an excuse to pull them back. So when one in the sector does stand out um, prominently like that, I do think yes, that's the one you want to go for. You don't want to get cute with it and start looking for sympathies. Um, the sympathy idea works very well, but the setup within the sector as a whole has got to be there, or you're just gonna end up entering into something that's flat or isn't going to move. One more example of that: semiconductors. I was talking about the JV team,
Yep.
and or the B list or whatever. And so what I mean by that is, I mean this isn't Nvidia, AMD. It's not the big players. It's also not the foundries and the complementary stocks that are just going to run with them. The JV team semiconductors have actually been struggling on earnings, but then they come back and they come back really hard. And so that was like RMBS and in a few of those. And I'm not just throwing a guess out there with that. I see it in the option flow. I see the drops probably coming, and then I see the rebound. And so there's a lot of complexity to what we do. And what I try to do is I try to take that complexity and make it as simple as I can. But what I don't want people to do is to just go at it and kind of see the simplicity of it and think, I'm just gonna kind of do this on my own and I'm gonna make this happen with some random stock that that they find or whatever. I think it's a process to get to that point, and I'm not trying to say like don't put in your own work or whatever, but yeah, build on what we're doing and take the time to really understand what it is we're doing
For
and how many checks these stocks have to go through for us to really put them on a list.
for me, sympathy. I mean, especially if we apply our freshman senior level, sympathy's real easy. There's two setups that I look for in sympathies, and the first one is pretty easy. It's federal money. If federal money goes into
Yeah.
something, then people just think, oh, this could get a part of that. So if they do the CHIPS Act or the clean energy stuff, that's the first sympathy. That's pretty easy to kind of follow um, around. And then the second one is big fish, little fish. If a big company says, and we can use AI, if Google or Microsoft says, I want to be an AI, then who are they going to team with? So you get that kind of sympathy thing, but it's still it's pre-business sympathies.
Yeah.
It's before the actual rubber hits the pavement. Like it's just the idea. So those aren't like to hold on forever, because there are going to separate winners from losers in the long run. The other part B of the big fish, little fish is when the big fish has a problem and the little fish are going to pick up the scraps. So Tesla has bad news, or numbers are down, then it picks up the other department and stuff like that. Or Target or Walmart has a bad report, or they're missing something. The perceived that someone else is gonna pick up that slack. That's the easiest way to
Yeah.
start with sympathies. If you overthink it or try to talk yourself into it, you're probably wrong. You're probably wrong. And to touch a little bit on the checklist, yeah, we do the work on Sunday. If you don't see that, that's how we get there. But when we get in the paint, first down, second down, third down, however you want to call it, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, for me, it starts with the news. That's like the number one check for me in the morning. You guys see it every day. Then I go to volume. That's second, and then after I know there's volume, it's into level two. So I mean that's just the basic rundown of how I get there. It's not just oh that's the one we're trading today. So you need to have those checks of things that think out. And I don't care what you use, whether it's RTL or the flow reads or whatever. You just have to start narrowing it down. The next check is going to be more narrow than the first check.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you look at how I use intraday flow, I mean, honestly, it's on the bid side. So because going into the week or the day or whatever, I'll kind of know that this stock has a bullish setup, and I'm looking for it at this spot. A lot of times I'm looking for like a flush in the morning or whatever. But if I see them put a lid on it, selling calls at some strike, I know I'm either going to trade. I'm going to trade it to that level, near that level, or I'm just going to stay away depending on how it is. John Deere's a good example. They'll they'll just like they'll use deep in the money puts, or they'll sell calls, and they'll just kind of keep it parked where they want it. You're going to enter an option trade on that. You got to buy some extra time. So yes, I have my own checks I go through as well. If you're someone, I think everyone in the room is going to lean maybe more towards TA or more towards flow. I think you do want to specialize some as a trader, and so yeah, so that's the time you can pick our brain after market hours about kind of our checklist, not only to put a stock on the list, but like how we actually trade. Where do these notes come from? Always happy to answer questions like that.
Yeah, I mean, if people ain't picked it up, I'll just when I see my checklist hit, like it hits good, I'll just say that stock looks spicy. I'm playing the upside.
Yeah.
We all know that. I don't play the
Yeah.
downside. So if it's going the wrong way, I ain't gonna mention it. But if it's like ready, if it's loading, if the gun is loading, if the pepper is hot, I just drop it. And I want people to just not click the button and follow. I want them to go look and say, okay, this looks the same as last time, and then eventually you can see the setups that people look for. I think that's more important
Yeah.
than just I guess DCAing in and playing the long term thesis because a lot of people want to day trade. Let's just get that out there. They don't want to swing trade, and for me that's a good compromise. I can get you off crappy stuff or just playing spy. Sorry, Goose, or anything like that by showing you stocks that are going to move. And I think that's again what we excel in because there's usually, I mean, there's usually two or three a day that we cover very well that are not only good, but they're like the top picks of the day, and we find those on Sunday.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We'll transition in here into some actual boring stuff or market stuff. What do you want to start with? I know we got like three on the list here.
Yeah, I'll start with oil.
Perfect.
Um, so I had posted some comments for those of you in the room from the Devon CEO
Yes.
about why they're doing buybacks right now and the feeling that there's a lot of value in oil that we're underestimating demand, and then the tech valuations are so sky high that it's kind of skewed energy's position within the S&P and all that. And I think in those comments that wasn't a bearish comment about tech to me. What he was really saying, but that there is a big opportunity in energy and the idea of our power needs. Elon Musk had comments on this too, that we really need to get ahead of the eight ball here for all the power that we're going to need for this big revolution in tech and AI and all that stuff. And I'm kind of my thinking is if it is a bubble, it's still very early. I think it's foolish to try to call the top on it. But those comments on energy, I mean, that's one of the big things um, that has me into the sector. And then when you combine that with the position of these stocks on the chart, the flow look, Devon in particular to 55 in the summer looks very likely to me. So yeah, so there's a big opportunity here, and I think we are just going to sift through it, pick the winners, a range of mega caps to mid caps. Small caps are kind of a different animal and energy, but yes, I think there's a big opportunity in that sector, and oil prices overall, have been pretty stable. They haven't broken down. We're sitting here tapping on 80 again, 90, 92. That's kind of where I think we're probably going.
Devin's another good example of Unc always being early over here. It was on Read the Room last week. Nothing
Yeah,
like being early TA and then having a thesis kick in the next week. Because again, it's already in your head. You should already know the chart. You should already have it like on a list. And this week, I'll point out the one it's going to be right now. It's the dinosaur, and the room will
yeah,
know what that is if you're in here.
yeah,
For me, it's again when the chart is good, because I'm a TA guy. I'm totally a TA guy first. I thought the flow was bullshit. I wasn't gonna pay $1,500 for a lifetime subscription to Unusual Whales, and it was probably a mistake back then. But I got you, so I don't really have to invest much time in it. Um,
yeah,
but when my chart lines up and then that lines up, they're almost a no-brainer. And then you just start putting the whole package together. Oil prices going up. Probably going to have a big push in energy with political weight or collateral, however you want to push it, because the orange guy's going to definitely be pounding the table on energy because the other side refuses to address it outside of clean
yeah,
energy. And then you separate winners from losers there, whichever way you think that's going to go. But we're going to have hope that energy is going to make a comeback Q2, Q3, 100%. You also get in the summer with electric cars, and you start getting them brownouts and stuff, and California's whole problem. And energy just gets back on the table. Travel, people
Yeah.
travel in the summer a lot more. So I mean, we've been through this what 3 times now. And I think that's what makes it a little bit clearer on my end in the energy sector. Because I was a guy when we first met that you said like Oxy and all this stuff, and I'm looking at the chart and it's like, yeah, thanks, it just ran 100%. What am I supposed to do with that? But 2 years later, it's totally still tradable.
Yeah.
It's just how it works.
Yeah, and Oxy's a good example of it kind of had its big pullback before this setup took shape, and I think you can still get into Oxy. You're at not as good of a pivot as you were, um, but it's one of the reason we talk about Devon and some of the others because there are charts that have some catching up to do to where Oxy is, and then I think we go
So
higher from there. So
Oxy's a good
yeah,
example of me like having to follow you for damn near 2 years. And then now I can speak from the TA side of it that we are tightening up on the weekly, use the larger time frames, people. And this should make a move in the next, let's say, 6, 8 months, just because we're going to run out of share distribution at this price. Probably a $70
yeah,
stock, not a $60 stock. And then eventually the 56 level, you pick the change, will never be offered again in the current condition. I mean, if we stay status quo. But it takes time. Like we're consolidating on 56. If you didn't get at Professor's 28 shares, you've kind of had to day trade or short-term swing trade this. But it's proving
yeah.
itself up here now that you could probably buy, you could probably long-term this from up here now off the 56 confirmation. Um,
Yeah, same with Exxon. The under 100
yeah,
look it had. That there is a point where that's just history, and Exxon did the same thing when it was $80. That was that entry's gone. Like you're just not going to get that. So everybody enters the stock market at different points in their life. I saw a stat the other day if like someone who's bought every iPhone spent like 20 grand. If you put the 20 grand into Apple when the
yeah.
iPhone came out, it's like $32 million or something.
No,
So
my
I mean,
my my buddy and the Model 3, he bought pre-ordered Model 3. It's the same thing. It's hilarious. If you'd have put the
yeah,
50K for the Model 3 into Tesla, you would have, yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's that's like that's
Um,
how it is. It's getting on the merry-go-round at the proper time, and Oxy's a good example
yeah,
of what I'm trying to say is you watch the merry-go-round, maybe dabble in it, but let it slow back down so you can get onto it. Very few things are in a video where they just rocket moon all the emojis.
yeah, yeah,
Very rare. So
yeah, and don't try to get on the merry-go-round thinking it's going to turn around the other direction. So that's like don't short the whole market
yeah,
for a sustained period of time. It's just not going to work for you. Um,
don't buy March 15 puts in January and stand on
yeah, yeah, I
it.
know it's not enough time. It's just not. I mean, for to a day trader back in January, March 15th felt like an eternity away. But when you call up, I talk about this all the time. Someone was asking me about staying in trades, and they were asking about leaps, and I just said, if I get on the wrong side of the options calculator and stay there for a week, it's done. I don't care what if it could be 10% down, it could be 30% down. And those leaps, they're not big positions, so we're talking 50 to $75 or something at that point. But the point is, it's just like I was wrong. My entry sucked. I don't need to spend the mental energy on this thing anymore. So I'm just going to cut it and move on. So hold and hope with options gets really bad. So it's not something you want.
In proper conditions on the share side, you'll get flushed out too. The
Yeah,
only time I asked downside was that first week or two of January, and you were just like not really seeing it. Um, so that combo kind of tells the tale on that. Like there's a good yin and yang there for what's most possibly likely to happen. And I think a lot of people don't say that in general. Like it's never really 100%, right? But it's just
yeah,
the odds go from a coin flip to like 65-35 or 70-30, and that's as good as it's going to get. It's never going to be 100% this is going up. And I think if you have that in your head, it'll really help you out as a trader.
Yeah, absolutely. Switching gears to
Pet rock.
copper really
Oh, go
quickly.
for it. Go for it.
Well, I'm going to do
Okay.
copper. So my only comment on copper is $4. The $4 is still the target, a break of $4 for like a sustained move up. And the fact this is actually kind of hovering above 375 is a pretty good sign to me. And then given what I'm seeing in flow and some of those stocks, I just expect to see some copper and metals this week. And by the way, lithium factors in here too in ways I'll talk about. So
Yeah,
yeah, basic materials are setting up.
I was looking forward to that list, and you didn't drop it, so that'll be a topic for the next session. I was just curious about that. But
Yeah, I'm just waiting a week.
if
That's all.
before we transition to another one of these two, quick question, because I know we're going to be different. If there was one subsector in this conversation that you would feel comfortable for full porting YOLOing right now, what would it be? Like copper,
Um,
metals, materials,
yeah.
oil.
So
I'll tell you
it
mine. Let me
would.
tell you mine because I hate putting you on the spot. I'll
Oh,
tell you
go
mine.
ahead.
Uranium.
Yeah.
It's uranium for me. Those I like where that's at, and I think those charts have a long way to go. Um, but yeah, that's just from a TA standpoint and what I've seen before in that sector.
Yeah. So for me, it's I'm kind of with you on uranium. My answer though is like Vale, what they do, and then the stocks that are kind of related to that. So Vale is iron alloys, a lot of ferrous minerals, and then probably like the FCX Rio stuff like that. So I think they're going to have a good like 18 months
Are most
ahead.
are most of
And
them outside of American companies? Just curious on that because I know.
the ones I like the most are, yes, it's
Okay.
mostly South America.
Okay. Yeah.
So the
Regulation, P. Regulation. You can dig the mine a little deeper
F,
with no safety glasses over there.
yeah, I mean FCX is an American company, but a lot of their stuff's in Chile and some other South American countries. So yeah,
Interesting.
basically it's a bullish thesis for South America as much as it is anything for me.
Perfect. Pet rocker tech stuffs.
Oh yeah, Pet Rock. So I actually caught more of the crypto move than I had planned on because I bought coin calls at about 8:40 on Monday, and did not expect it to do what it did. So it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't really on my radar to have that big pop like that this soon. But my whole take on crypto had been, it's like you have what you have back from when we were at like 42K. If you sold it all, whatever. With miners, they're gonna pull back. Don't worry about it. There'll be a new entry, new setup, and that's kind of that's what has happened. And so I think there are a number of miners that are not showing up on earnings very well. There's some small ones that are going to report this week. So there's a divergence. Bitcoin's over 60,000. Some of the smaller miners are lagging, and yeah, that's one opportunity that's there. The other one is to say, I mean, MSTR. I pounded the table on this for a very long time, and so like back when it was like $370, then it was 450, and then we were both on it, together fairly recently. Now it's over $1,000. It's still the biggest winner, and it's still the biggest potential winner. And Flow shows that 1400C, and they're going to start writing strikes over 2000 or whatever. So I know it's expensive, but from a purely alignment with Bitcoin, if Bitcoin is going to run through all-time highs, this is clearly going to go up, and it's most obviously going to go up, and it's not going to get the pullbacks and legal issues that the miners get or that coin get. gets. And then Hood is another one I think
Yeah.
that people don't think enough about as a crypto stock. So that's
They're
kind of my take on the sector right now.
Hood's bad. I mean, there's a news drop like 2 weeks ago just on the fees that Hood is 1,000 times better than Coinbase on the fees for the coins. I don't know if it's just
Yeah,
Bitcoin, but um, that's great news in general for a company like that. I'm totally with the small ones, and you hit it. You already hit what you said. I was gonna say with the small ones. Someone dropped a news article. I think it was last week. It might have been this week. It's kind of running together for me right now. Just about like the market cap and how much coin they have, and the smalls like they're almost trading at the value of or at 70% of the value of the coins they have currently, like the current price. That's the market cap, and I think that's important to look into in the small ones, or if you are trying to hold something long term, because you got to look into how the company structure is, and that's exactly what you did
yeah,
with MSTR. Is that you seen the conversion of what they were doing with the company, and then the amount of coins they had, and then them doubling down on the coins. Um, yeah, and it just kind of the thesis kind of played out there, and there should be another one, maybe two of those outside of the 15, 20 that we follow. For our people, if I put a Professor Purple line on our chart, that's going to be special. I haven't seen many of them fail, and it was 466.88. It's up on the screen right now for MSTR. Um,
yeah,
because you started talking about after we did the ECS, sorry, soccer on my brain, ETF, um,
yeah,
ETF thesis, you switched gears to this is like the better way to trade it if you're going to trade ETFs because there's no fees and they're just set up better. And we're 100, I mean 466, it's 1,079 right now. That happened in 6 weeks.
yeah.
I mean, that makes somebody's year. It really does. If someone played that or followed that well, you never really. I mean, unless you're playing short term options, you never really could have gotten stop lost. Share side is damn near impossible to get stop lost. You would only have done what I did, which was paper handed a couple shares. Um, but yeah. I mean, it's
Uh,
go ahead.
yeah, and that's what we talk about. The one share gang, right? And when your one share gang is 400 something dollars, and you double up that on that, that's pretty that's pretty good. And it's just kind of an illustration of using using the work. And so I sold on the pop to 750. I've kept some, and just and I have my ideas about where on a pullback where I might get out. But yeah, that one works really well. Now the hardware software thing. Um, so this is something that I noticed back in August, and that was at the time the SaaS that I followed did not look strong at all, and they did pull back right after that. So Snow and some other ones. Now they did from there. They kind of went with the market and made a big run. But I was seeing like even like hard drives like Seagate and Western Digital, and WDC is the chart we could pull up on this. That uh, you know I saw a flow there that was pushing it to like the mid 50s, back back in August, and that way that ended up aligning with what was really happening there was that was anticipating the chip demand and this big huge move in AI that we saw, and the and that thesis is still playing out. So I am only interested in SaaS stocks after a big drop when it resets. And then with the hardware side, I think you just continue to play the trend and play the upside, and you just sort of pick which ones you like. Dell's going to be very active now that Friday happened, and that's pretty cheap to trade. So a lot of my notes, that's going to be a big theme in my notes, and it's going to continue till I see something different. So I'm very interested in CrowdStrike earnings this week and MDB, and seeing some follow through on ZS and a couple others. But yeah, so that's where I am on that thesis.
That whole sector, and it happened with Snow. I think Snow's the best example for me. Um, a lot of times it's a hard one for me to pick a spot on the TA side to say like these are good because they usually are a little overvalued or they have a high multiplier in that regard.
Yeah.
What I always do when you're like this is a sector is I that's when I just do the extra check and try to find one. And there'll be one that fits your system. Again, my system's TA focused, so there'll be one that's in a good TA spot, and that's where the OKTA came from. It was just in a great spot, and then it fits the thesis, and then it happened to be the winner this time. But it was the same with Snow. I think Snow was 131 here. I'll pull it up. But you just
Yeah.
find something. Yeah, yeah. You just find some 131. Yeah, down here. You just find something that all right. This one makes sense. TA side or this, and I don't care what it is, whatever your checks is. But if you don't have a checklist, you need to have less of an expectation. You can't just jump into like an NDB or whatever it is and hope because you know, for whatever reason it. I don't know why people like stocks, but if it's not system focused or a reason, I mean, me volume profile is huge. You just need to go to what you know, and even if that means you don't get a trade every day, that's what it is. But just to hop in stuff willy nilly um, isn't going to work and this is a great sector to kind of show that. Um, because if
Yeah.
it's not all
Yeah.
there, there's some downside to most of these charts. Again, because the price is already built up a little bit. Because they're one step away, all of them, from getting that sympathy I talked about with the bigger fish. Because that's what they are. They're companies that fill a need, and if Microsoft or Oracle or Dell or something is like we're doing this right, like if Dell's like we're gonna just have the best cybersecurity ever and it's gonna be free in our computers, one of those is gonna get picked, and that's where
Yeah.
you're gonna want to be. So it's again you got to have the check your checklist or don't trade senior or junior sectors.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's last point on that. I I've scaled out a crowd from a really good entry, um, and it was kind of on this run. And the so there's a difference to me between being like it's not just like you're bullish or bearish, right? It's that I'm bullish, but like this is enough. I think yeah, it could go higher, but this is enough for me. It's already exceeded my expectation. It hit my target 6 months early. I'm just gonna I'm just gonna call it good. So there is that kind of that third category. There's just walking away. I've had enough. I'm gonna go ahead and get out. And then just just seeing what can happen to these software companies. I even if you bought Snow at 130, my share average was higher than that. It was like 150, 155. But I mean, yeah, to see it drop 20% in a day, that kind of sucks. I had put at 200p. That lessens that ended up being worth more than all my total shares were. But the point is that there's just no reason to absorb a big drop like that on these binary earnings events. And SaaS in particular has been taking a beating on those. So better to get out and let it reset, and then we'll go from there.
We talk about just in general. We talk about you know when we talk about full account trading, like you don't use your whole account, have a system. But when you use your whole account and then you make some money, right, and then you're using that full account, and then you make some more money and you have a big winner, now you're using that. It's the same thing. You can break that down into the stock. So if you have a big winner in any of these crowd or snow or whatever, and you start off with this, we'll use round number and we'll use option side because they'll make this better. You start
Yeah.
trading 10 contracts, um, and you get the victory. You need to bust that down too. All right, now the move that I seen happen. You don't keep trading 10 contracts. You just go to two,
Yeah.
and you go to two or
Yep.
you go to one, and you can stay in there and still fish, but you need to be sizing down. The best analogy I have is when I did go to the casino when I was younger. You take 20 or 40 bucks out there. When you're 20 years old, cash your check out there to spin the wheel if they have that where you're at. Those days. Um,
Yeah.
I would if I got up. I'm a craps player. If I got up on the craps table, I was just looking for dinner, right? Like free dinner.
Yeah.
I want to go to the steakhouse over there. So you hit 200-300 bucks and you go over there. But when I came back, I'm starting with like just a couple bets. 20 bucks is all we're doing. If it goes away, it goes away. I'm not breaking out $300 and starting there after I walked away and came back. And it fits for these anything. You kind of want to scale down after your original thesis played out and not double down, because you're going to end up giving it all back.
Yeah, and we've hit some really big ones on earnings lately. But it's one contract,
Yep.
max maybe two
Two to
if you're doing
one.
like a 2 for 1.
Yep.
But like Value and I posted that Dell setup, and Value bought one, and we spent $60 and sold it for over 1,000 the next morning. And then you're like, wow, man, if I would have bought 10 of those, I mean, you spend $600 on a contract, $30 out of the money. I mean, that kind of hindsight doesn't really do you any good. It's better to just stick with your $60 bets on that, and then keep track of the ones you're winning, and you'll see, keep track of the ones you're losing because you're going to lose some too. But if you're keeping the sizing right, then it's fun. It is fun to do, but just stay humble about it.
Yeah, what you first said, your greed is showing if that's what you're doing. It is what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Your greed is showing.
yeah,
Um, you don't win, and it goes for anything. If you did the six-way parlay and you turned the 20 $40 into a grand or whatever it is, I don't know the ratios over there. You don't go into your next six-way parlay with $1,000. That's just stupid. Because
yeah.
they're not gonna hit. I mean, that's a great one. They're not gonna hit over and over again. And if that's what you're looking for, like you're that 90% that don't make it. That's what you're gonna be. You're not special. Um, and I don't have to be nice about that because it's just the odds are in my favor there. That's just how that
Oh
works.
yeah, yeah, and the option side too, and we'll get to SPY after this, but um, so like Zipscaler is a good example. I was like, SAS, it's going down. It's all going down. This is going to go down. It only went down 10%. 10% is a big move. Option side, though, that wasn't enough, especially on a Thursday when people had weeklies where, all those weeklies went to zero because of what's been happening and the way the implied volatility was. You needed 20% down at least. And a lot of people were, trading that looking for 30% down. And so it's there's a lot of extra stuff that's happening there with on the option side that affects those earnings trades and whether or not they're gonna work or not. And a lot of it has to do with, are the whales really going to be caught off guard by what's going to happen here? They were to the upside with Dell, and they were to the downside with Palo Alto and Snow to some extent. But that's kind of the extra factor that you need. I'm pretty good at, is this going to go up or going to go down on
Yeah.
earnings? But
Yes.
but on the option side, that's not enough. Like, it has to be that kind of extra move there. So that's why you just stay small if you're going to get in those.
And I'm pretty good at where it's gonna go, whichever direction it's gonna go, up or down. After you figure that out,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's where I come in. Um,
yeah,
Transition to Spy here. You're 5'11", 495. I was 5'10", 496. There's some change in there. No, not worthy
yeah.
of a mention. Uh, the question was last week was 505. Gonna finish above or below because we're kind of walking it up. We were 500 asking that the week before. 504.75. I mean, 505 was damn near just the bottom last week. So super strength in the market. 513 being the top. The trend on the weekly. It's a good time to mention that. Like the trend doesn't change until it changes on the weekly, and Spy's trend has not changed since I guess October. No, no, the November. The November is when we changed, and we're just marching up a hill here. 1 and 3 year volume profile breakout. Obviously, it's going to be breaking out on the 10-year too because we're at all-time highs. I'm blind up here. I'll be honest with people. I just guess up here. We just guess for fun. But the flow
Yeah.
usually dictates the direction, like Professor was just saying. So that's really what you want to chime into and listen to, in my opinion.
It's it's sold, it's sold puts, heavy sold puts. They're way out of the money. I'm not sure what it is they're trying to do here. But so it's March. It's no, sorry, April 12th. 430 and 435 P.
Yeah.
Um, and so that those are kind of already going to run out of time for being viable in a sense. I mean, if we did get like kind of a big check down, those would double up pretty fast.
We
But
need a world event
um,
for that, I think, at this point for April.
yeah, yeah. And so I mean, they're 100% bid size, so they're just selling those.
Free money.
So for
Free money
yeah,
flow.
exactly. Yep. And so then from there I kind of look at what on a Friday what is likely to roll. So I think like 514, 515, kind of expect those to roll. On the downside, all I got is 510 as far into the early
Yeah.
week
Yeah.
contracts. So I think we probably do. That's not much of a drop, of course, but
That's what
um,
happened last
but
week.
I
That's
but yeah,
exactly.
I think they'll be able to get out of those. That's sort of what my take is on 510. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and see what I can find here. Yeah, I'm gonna say 506.97 can be my downside, and upside 516.74.
I like it. Again, I mean, my even if I use my system, try to stick with that. We're 500 on the daily chart and 595 on our 495 on the 20 day for my pivot. That's not happening. It's still a ton of earnings this week, and those. But what I'm noticing with earnings is like the bar's low, so most of them are getting met in that regard.
Yeah.
So I,
Yep.
I I don't think we stop the weekly trend. Picking a top is hard for me, so I just pull numbers out my butt at this point in time. But I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna be a little more bullish than you this week. I think I'm gonna go 518, especially with Powell and Jobs coming out. I think we might get a pop 518.21, and downside. I do like where you're at, but maybe I'll just go with the 505 so we hit the psych, and then we'll go 50505 because
Nice.
I like the way that sounds. But then again, the question I think that's better that we've been asking the last few weeks: does SPY finish above 510? It was 55 last week. I'm just gonna walk it up $5 every week. It was 500 the week before
Yeah.
that. Does SPY in your mind finish above 510 this week? It sounds like a
Yes.
yes, yes.
I'll say
And
yes.
and this is
Yeah.
the first week we're both going to be on yes because I've been taking the counter argument, and I don't see the trend stopping. Everything's set up for us to continue to go this way. Even if J Powell comes out and shits on us Wednesday, trying to put a little cold water on the fire, the market is just not listening to that right now. They're actually going to have to get slapped in the face with we're not cutting rates before I think we actually have pullback, and we still have a few more weeks for that.
My I give you my number for an aggressive pullback if and when we do get that.
Shoot.
Because I do think that some banking pressure middle of the month, could do some things to pull us back. But it's not 470 anymore for me. It's like 485. I think is where I like I'd like us to pull back if we do get something.
PB. I'm 472p, just on TA side. I'm
Yeah, I
still
mean
there. I'm
that makes
still
some
there.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you're the top of it, but I think we get into it. 478 would be the top one, but yeah, I mean we're talking $7 on a $512 stock, so um,
And that's where
it's a good win.
the big opportunity is going to be because that's going to seem like a disaster to these people who've just been piling into calls every day. And so you shake all them out, and then we reset, and that'll open up some range, like 20%, and the SaaS stocks I follow and all that. So yeah, that would be great if that actually did happen.
It's going to
And
be
I
like
think
that
the key is
that 412 number is going to be just like that. That was hell when that happened, and people started talking about 370, and instead of
yeah, oh yeah,
checking their
yep,
system, and it was 411 for me. That volume profile has went away on the weekly, but that's just where center mass was, and again, when the lines are respected, follow the flow. That's
Yeah,
my new statement for everybody.
absolutely.
Are you ready to get to work, Pete?
Yeah, I'll grab a coffee and we'll go.
All right.
Everybody like, subscribe, retweet, all that stuff.
Yeah. Perfect.